Okay, so in my last video, I said that I was going to talk about the 6 steps to interviewing. During that same video, I actually shot the content for that. I just didn't post it. I totally forgot about it. I'm about to upload that now, and today's my third Monday working this job. So I think what I'm gonna do next is just do an update with my tech sales experience and my new job. I think it's better to do it while it's fresh versus trying to recall some stuff. So that'll probably be my next video. But yeah, here's the 6 steps video.
I can only be the GOAT. I can only be the best.
All right, I'm just gonna do the steps right now. So the 6 steps to interviewing, it goes like this. It's the greeting, small talk, framing, background or story or resume, whatever you want to call it, Q&A, and then closing. So the first step is the greeting. Hi, person's name, how are you? And they're going to say something back. The next step would be small talk. Usually what I like to do is look on their LinkedIn, see some type of commonality, just any type of talking point, maybe a school they went to, maybe where they are in the country, just something to spark up some genuine small talk. Oh, I see you went to, Hampton University. I went to Hampton too. I lived in the area, those sort of things. Oh, I see you're in California right now. The weather must be great. I'm over here and it's cold, or just whatever. Small talk should be small, no longer than 20 or 30 seconds long. From there, this is the most important step. When I say this step here has got me the most positive response, bar none. And I'm gonna tell you, this is the exact script for it. So I was thinking today I would tell you a little bit about me, learn a little bit more about the role, and see if it's a good fit. Do you mind if I go first? Now, if you're pursuing an SDR role and you saying that, basically what you're telling the person at that point is, oh, if you could take control in an interview, you could do the same thing on the phone with a client. Every time I did that in an interview, they always visibly are impressed by that. So that's a super major step. A lot of people are going through interviews, they're telling you to do the STAR method, which is important, but this is, I think, better from my experience. I've done both, and this got the best, response. So that's the third step. The fourth step is your story. It's your background. Don't go in order. Don't talk about the first job you ever had. Talk about your relevant experience with the role. So me, my background was military and life insurance. Military is not really relevant to sales. And don't break down every bullet. So I would say, so most recently, I had experience as a full sales, life insurance agent, blah, 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 blah. Then I would mention Glen Coco. Right now, I don't have a job. I'm working Glen Coco. Essentially, it's a marketplace for SDRs to book appointments, kind of similar to this role. Really good, looking for something more substantial. Excited to learn more about the role. That's kind of what you do. You're doing an overview of your experience that's relevant. You don't want to sit here going all day about everything you did. They don't want to hear about it. They don't care. So that's the next step. Step after that, step 5 would be Q&A. Now with the Q&A section of the interview, you should already have your questions written down. Thoughtful questions just based off of things that you genuinely want to know about the company, or things to show that you have an inquisitive mind. This is a super important step. What I like to do is write out all of my questions, and then I put a box in front of them. This is noteworthy. Sometimes you're not going to be able to take control of the conversation. And if that's the case, still use this framework because it helps you be more on with what you're saying. But what I like to do is I check off the questions if they go over them beforehand. And that way I'm not asking something they already went over and I'm still having thoughtful questions, because you don't want to get at the end of the interview and not have any questions, that's just not a good look at all. So that's a super important step. Write out the questions, check them off as they answer them. And yeah, you could use, I mean, there are great questions. There are other videos you could find on YouTube, questions to ask in the interview. I have a list of questions. If you type questions in the comments, and I'll drop some questions that I ask. And then the last step is closing. Closing is also, man, all these steps are important. All these steps are important. Closing is super important because at this point, you're always going to say, with 5 minutes left, like, hey, you know, I see we have about 5 minutes left. I want to be respectful of your time. Did you have a hard stop, or is it okay if we go over? Now, if they really like you, they'll always, if they like you, if they don't like you, I'll say that. If they don't like you, they're never going to go over. They're going to cut that as soon as possible. So if they allow a few more minutes, either they're being nice or they like you. And it's usually they like you. But sometimes they might like you, but just really have a tight schedule. So what you do at that point is like, well, you don't ask everything. It's like, well, I enjoyed, learning about this role. I enjoyed talking with you, sharing my background. Is there any reason you wouldn't move on with me to next steps? And then be quiet. You let them talk. Now, one of the three things that are going to happen. One, they're going to be like, well, so for me, I'll give a real example. They told me in one of the interviews, well, you have a sales background, but you don't have tech sales experience specifically. So what you do is you thank them. Okay, well, yeah, thank you for sharing that with me. That is true. I don't have that experience, and you overcome that objection. How I overcame it was like, yeah, I don't have tech sales experience, but I have life insurance experience, and that's a product as well. So, and anyone who has that experience, they still have to learn this product. So we're still in the same boat. You have to be able to sell yourself. You overcome that objection, but you don't want to seem defensive. You just want to make your point to them. What that shows to them is you could overcome their objections. You could overcome clients' objections. So it's always a good sign. That's one of the three things that could happen. Two is they'll say, oh, no, there's nothing. If they say that, either they're being honest or they're lying. Because nobody ever says, yeah, you're not going to be a good fit. They always, especially, I've had this on, man, this needs to be a separate video. I'm going to do this as a separate video. After looking back at the last video, I realized I really could have just finished that point, but it's all good because we're here now. The last point that I was making was like, if you ask, is there any reason you wouldn't move on with me to next steps? And they say, no, there's no reason. We just got to talk to the team. And one or two things are true. They're lying or they're telling the truth. If you're talking to the recruiter and they say, oh, we just have to get with the other team members, that's a red flag because you've only spoke with them. Like, who else do they have to talk about? This is a screening interview. I would call them out because you're really trying to figure out, why you're not moving on. So you could be like, hey, I hear what you're saying. I could tell that this isn't a good fit on your end. Could you help me understand why, just so I could better prepare for future scenarios for me? Just call them out on it, because they're never going to respond to any follow-up emails. They're going to duck you. So I would call it out. Now, if they say no, but it feels like they're being honest, then the other thing to do would be to solidify next steps. Okay, well, that sounds good. When are we going to be able to do the next interview? Or what does that look like? Just really scheduling the next steps while you're on the call with them. Because, you don't want to leave it to chance and then hope that they respond to your email. It just ends up being a long, drawn out process. So earlier on when I said, is there anything about my experience that would, give you hesitation on moving forward? Another approach would be, if they say something, you'd be like, oh, thanks for, bringing that up. I actually do have that experience. I totally forgot to mention that. And then you could elaborate on that objection, you know, by saying you do have that experience. So part one is you don't have that experience, but you have other related experience. Or a better way, which I'm saying now, is, you know, I do have that experience. You just kind of rewording the same thing. I have that experience, and this is how I had that experience. Thanks for, you know, I'm sorry I didn't, you know, clarify that better, you know. So that's really it. It's more steps to it than this. It's obviously more steps to this whole process than I could put in a 10 to 15 minute video. You definitely have to do preparation, those sort of things. So drop comments, questions under the video, and I will respond to all of them. And yeah.